The 9 Years Podcast.
Alright everybody, and welcome to episode 61 of the 9 Years Podcast. 61, of course, the year that my co-presenter Stuart Deakins was born. Ties in very, very nicely. My name is Nick Draper. Thank you for listening to today's show, whether you're doing so on iTunes, YouTube or 9yrspodcast.org. Keep those rating reviews coming in on iTunes if you may. Thank you very much for all of those. Stu, how are you this week?
Superb.
Great word. We've got the second part of our interview with Mark Robertson and Jeremy Sauer to broadcast this week, the Academy guys. Fantastic interview. First half, I'm sure if you listened to it last week, you'd have known what a great interview and what a great time we had, and that just carries on this week with the second part. So we look forward to that. We'll be talking about the Bury and the Swindon games for past week, look ahead to the coming week's action away at Peterborough, Poleon Go as well. But Stu, I have to make an apology at the start of the show because my microphone has yet to be fixed, and in fact, I think we might just have to have a moment of silence for the passing of my old microphone.
Yeah, I think that's very apt. You know, if you were abroad, everyone would clap for a minute, but we will have a silence.
Yeah, we'll just have a period of silence. We'll have a period where the audio might actually improve for a little while because there isn't any audio. So I do apologise. Hopefully next week we'll be back up and running to the usual high standards that we set ourselves. Is that not correct, Stu?
Of course, we have very high standards here. Mine's all right, to be fair, so I don't know about yours.
I fear that my voice is going to sound a lot lower than yours. You're going to be a lot louder and a lot clearer. I feel like I'm going to be the Milton Keynes to your AFC Wimbledon, lagging somewhat behind.
Could well be. I'll try and talk a little bit, not as loud. I'll try and soften my voice.
Thank you very much. Do you want to start with an attempt at your top 7 list for this week?
Yes. So my top 7 list is really obviously based on the Tuesday night late winner against Bury, which we'll discuss a little later. I thought I would discuss my top 7 favourite late Wimbledon goals. So I say goals because not all winners, but you'll know what I mean by when I go through my list. So in no particular order, although I have left the best for last, but the others are in no particular order. If that makes any sense to anybody. So my first one is Richard Butler. My first one is Richard Butler versus Walton and Hersham, the 2-1 winner in the 99th minute in the Sauer Senior Cup final. Then, how can we forget, Jake Reeves versus York last season, which was the 90th minute +3, so very late on. Next one, Stacey Long versus Torquay away, a 3-2 win in that first season. That was in the 94th minute. Then, of course, Akenfenwa against a certain team up north, now Johnson Paint Trophy 3-2 win in the 80th minute. Tom Beer in a playoff semi-final last year, in the 93rd minute, massive goal. Who can forget Sammy Moore versus the Ebbsfleet in the FA Cup 3-2 win, 120th minute. I think we can all remember that goal. And then finally, I think probably one of the most important goals we actually did score was Jonathan Meads away at Gillingham in a 2-2 draw, which, if you remember, allowed us to keep our destiny in our own hands when we played Fleetwood in that famous last game.
How can we forget that famous Gillingham game? That's a great list, Stu. In fact, you've given me inspiration to change my top 7 list this week, just on the fly. So I'm going to go for my top 7 Wimbledon goals of all time.
Okay.
Yep, just any goal from any time, in any minute. Top 7 of all time. Do you want to hear them?
Go on then.
Okay, number 1 is Carl Court against Watford in December 1999. Number 2 is Robbie Earle against Watford in December 1999. Number 3 is John Hartson against Watford in December 1999. Number 4 would be Jason Ewell against Watford in December 1999. Number 5 would be Marcus Gale against Watford in December 1999. Number 6 will be Carl Court against Watford in August 1999. And then finally, number 7, Marcus Gale against Watford in August 1999.
That is a superb list, and there's a theme the whole way through that I just can't quite work out what it is.
They were all Wimbledon players.
That's the theme. I missed it. Damn.
Hi, I'm John Green, author of Paper Towns, and when I'm not watching the Ellen DeGeneres Show or WWE Wrestling, I listen to the 9 Years Podcast on iTunes.
Right, this week started on the field with a 0-0 draw against Swindon, in a game, Stu, that I think everyone went away from, sort of just shrugging their shoulders going, Yeah, that happened. Not a lot to report.
No, it was one of those games that it all fell really on a missed penalty, if we're being truthful. There was nothing really happening first half. Swindon are a very pretty team in terms of pretty football, pass it well, move well off the ball, but getting to that final third and really, with them only playing one man up front, wasn't really effective. We got a penalty, probably, I would say against a run of play, but we'd put no real pressure on. Debatable penalty. I think we both, I've looked at it on TV and I still think Tom Elliott anticipates the challenge coming in, goes over. I wouldn't say he dives, but I think he anticipates it and the challenge doesn't come in. And then, of course, we have the situation where Lyle Taylor takes a penalty. Last penalty was taken and scored by Dean Parrott and misses. So I think that was a big moment, because if we had scored it, I think it then changes Swindon's game plan. They probably can't get away with playing that 4-5-1, have to attack. But really after that, they obviously got a bit more confidence from it and we just couldn't break them down. So, yeah, nothing really, was it? It was a bit of a disappointing... It's a point, which is never disappointing. It adds another point to the piggy bank, as they say. But, yeah, there's nothing gained.
Can I ask, who says adds points to the piggy bank?
It's no one. I just, as I said it, I thought that sounds quite cool. So... just adds points. I know we don't put points in the piggy bank, but coins. But it's a play on words, Nick.
Is it a piggy bank? Is it a piggy back? Or is it a piggy bag?
A bank, piggy bank.
Piggy bank. Okay,
that's
our new phrase.
It's where points are held. Yeah.
Brilliant. So the 9 Years podcast, points in piggy bank, something like that.
Yeah,
putting points in the piggy bank. Anyway, We've got 3 more of those points on Tuesday night in a slightly more entertaining game away at Bury with a very, very late winner from Jonathan Meads. Takes us up to 9th in the table, so when can we start planning to go back to Wembley?
Do you really want another playoff before? Do you want another playoff final?
We've got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose if we get there again.
Yeah, I think the good thing about it is that we are looking... The league's very tight, and I was looking at a lot of forums today. Of course, I'm very busy at work, mind you. But during my spare time today, I was just looking at some of the forums and the League One forum. And there's a lot of teams who are not on great form, have started really well, and now have lost a few games, Bury included, who are now looking and saying, no, for 4 points off relegation, and it's a very tight league. However, ourselves, I don't know about you, but I'm not looking at the bottom at the moment. I'm looking and going, Joe, what we're very we're touching the playoffs. And we're looking in very good form at the moment. Yeah, the league's very tight. You could lose 2 games and be probably in that bottom 4, but we are on a real big run of form. And I think generally we just fight harder. We're very well organised. We work hard for each other, and the hard work is paying off with points. Yeah,
because you picked up the point there. Sorry to do the play on words there with point, but the draw against Swindon is another point. There's no other word for that, really, is there? Towards our survival. But it also keeps an unbeaten run going. What is it now? 8 unbeaten or 1 defeat in 13?
Yeah.
Yeah.
8 unbeaten, 1 defeat in 13, which was against a very good Sheffield United team, which, they won 3-4-0, didn't they, against Shrewsbury on Tuesday night. So I don't think that was a disgrace, or it wasn't a bad performance. But we're doing really well. I think we just work harder. Last night we, from all accounts, from people that are up there, not a great pitch, but we work hard. We work hard for each other. The double substitution makes a difference. Alpha Yegan, I'm sure we're going to talk about, got 70. Well, he's on for 72 minutes, so he got probably about 20 minutes under his belt last night, which it's really good when you think about Neil Hardy is now trusting what is effectively a first-year pro from the youth team into his first team now.
It was interesting because against Swindon, he didn't trust. Well, not say he didn't trust, but he didn't risk bringing Alfie on. But then last night, as you say, brought him on at 1-1. Game could go either way at that stage, and that's a lot of confidence to put in him. The point you make there about how we, as a team, we just work harder and we're set up well tactically, that's been one of our main strengths this season under Neil Ardley. He sets us up so well, we keep our shape, everyone does their jobs. We haven't had to do particularly anything spectacular to beat teams, have we? We've just, as you say, kept our discipline, not really given opposition teams too many chances, too much encouragement, and then we've got the opportunity to break, we've taken our chances.
Yeah, I think if you look at the 4 forwards we've got, we're fortunate in a way. Everyone has their, if I ask you now what's your favourite pairing, you could probably say your favourite pairing.
Paige and Emma.
Paige. Okay. Of the women of four, you could probably, my favourite pairing probably would be Tom Elliott and Dominic Poleon. At the moment, even though Lyle Taylor's done very well, my pairing would be those two. But then equally, you can put Barnett and you can put Lyle Taylor together, or you can cross over between Tom Elliott and Lyle. I wouldn't say it makes an awful lot of difference. They're very interchangeable. They can play in either pairings. And the good thing that Ilardi's been able to do, and I don't think it's as easy as people think, is he's been able to keep four forwards happy, working hard, come on, and they are making differences. So he's managed to keep them motivated because looking at if Tom Elliott's a very laid back character, but Barnett, by all accounts, is quite a strong-willed character. We know Lyle Taylor is, and Poleon didn't play a lot at Oldham and played out wide. So he's been able to keep those players really happy, and when they come on, they make a difference. And I think all the time you're working as hard as we are at the back, Darius Charles and Paul Robinson are working really hard, and yes, let's be fair, James Shea is playing very, very well and a calming influence now. So all around the pitch, we are doing our jobs really well.
Neil Larvey has said before that at the start of the season, when things weren't quite going our way, he felt that the team ethic was lacking slightly. He said he wasn't sure if it was the come down from the playoffs the season before, or whether players that had come into the side weren't quite doing their jobs as they should be. How much do we now think he mentions, or he's thinking of, the relationship in the defence and the goalkeeper? Because you mentioned James Shea there, who has been in outstanding form since returning to the first team and coincided with this great run.
Yeah, we're not stupid as fans. We know Newali after, I'm trying to think the win now we had. He did it after a home game, didn't he? Was it Chesterfield at home we won a game? If mind playing tricks on me, but I think we won a game at home, and he come out and said that he felt the fans should get behind Ryan Clark, and we're better than that, and that sort of thing, as if to defend his player to the hill. However, I think his hand was probably forced a little bit by Ryan Clark deciding that he wanted to go, and he went to Eastleigh, and he's there now. But if you look through the team lineup, we haven't changed our defence hardly anything from what it was when Ryan Clark there. Maybe Jonathan Meads obviously come in for Kelly, but that defence is exactly the same defence that played in front of Ryan Clark. So us fans are not stupid. We know there's one player that's changed, and the relationship between goalkeeper and centre halves is massively different. We had Darius Charles moaning at Ryan Clark nearly every occasion, Paul Robinson really failing to even talk to the goalkeeper. Yet now it's a totally different story, and James Shea has done very, very well coming in, and he is a calming influence, and we don't really look like now that we're going to be under pressure. He comes and takes everything he needs to take. He's very good at his kicking. He's done very well and taken his chance excellently.
We've mentioned the forwards, we've mentioned the defence and the goalkeeper. Not really mentioned the midfield, but that brings us nicely on to Man of the Match polls. At the time of recording, you can still check out the Man of the Match poll for Bury. Do that on our Twitter at 9YRS Podcast. But the result from the Swindon game featured a midfielder that I think, Stu, we have been a big fan of all season, and now we really are seeing our faith in him justified with a run in the first team, and that is Dean Parrott. He has been outstanding, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's very, very good. And I think also, if you listen to Don's player interview, which was recorded after the Bury game, he's a team player. He said the first thing he did, and this is quite interesting, the first thing he did when Jonathan Meads scored his goal was not chase after Jonathan Meads because he had a dead leg, but he went straight to Jake Rees and congratulated him on what was an excellent cross. We think about someone who's taken all the set pieces, for him to then go and congratulate someone else who's done what he should be doing shows you actually it's a team, and he's a very big team player. He does a lot. He's just as quick with the ball than he is without it. He's quite attacking minded. His first thought is to go forwards, and I've been really impressed with him. I think you and I, when he first played for us, you could tell there was something decent about him. You could just tell that, and we've now, because we're playing the three now in the midfield, we're playing technically 4-3-3 a lot of times, we can play Reevesy, Dean Parrott and probably Danny Bullman in that combination. And that combination is working very well because, I say, Reeves or Parrott can take the opportunity to drive on and go forward, and they're both very good set-piece takers.
Dean Parrott actually drew the man of the match poll this week. 28% alongside Darius Charles. Tom Elliott, 27%, so it's a really close run thing. Jonathan Meath then on 17%. We also had some 3-word match reports for the win at Bury on Tuesday night. Favourite 3 that I have picked, we've gone for Ian Harrison at Ari Harrison. Last minute burial, very clever. Mike Overall again, who might be challenging Ray Armfield at the moment for 3-word reports. He went for no arc required in reference to the weather. If you'd seen the pictures, it did look like we were playing in a swimming pool at times. Standing water spraying up, never a good sign. And finally, Mark Ayers at Mark Ayers went for Merry Berry Baked. Very good.
Love it.
Very good. At the end of the season, we'll have to think of our favourite 3-word reports of all throughout the campaign. And that one we need to note down. Do you know what? I'm just going to favourite that right now. Okay? There you go. Mark Ayers, remember when you saw that we'd favourited your tweet? I'm doing it right now. I've just done it now.
Maybe what we can do is like what we're going to do with the Golden Month Award. Maybe we could have a monthly favourite 3-word report and then put them all in the hat, all the winners of each month at the end of the season, and get one and vote on who they think is the most funniest or wittiest or cleverest.
Yes, all those things. We shall attempt to get that one sorted. Other thing about the Swindon game we have to mention, Stu, is where we were watching the game from.
Yeah, we were slumming it, weren't we?
We were slumming it with the in the cheap seats.
I think even I thought we were gate crashing a party, and then realised that actually no, we weren't.
I kind of looked at us and went, "Sorry, what? What are you doing here?"
These in.
Yeah, we've got tickets here today, Ivor. It's all right. It's all right. That's off. But yeah,
obviously, yeah. Saying that, we would like to thank obviously Ryan O'Sullivan from the Rygas, who kindly let us have his hospitality tickets. He wasn't able to make the game, and he kindly gave them to yourself and me to have some food before the game. And I'm glad to say that I don't know about you, Nick, but the carvery was very nice. A 3-course meal, some good company, even though they did take my roll away when I was eating my roll. I think they were in a rush to get us out of there, but it was a good experience, wasn't it?
Yeah, first time I've done it, to be honest, and I can see the appeal, although it was a little bit quiet. The most noise in the Dorrits box was actually made by the John Green fans behind us, who were perhaps more familiar with the rules of Quidditch than that of professional football, as opposed to amateur football. Different rules, apparently.
The gentleman behind me, to be fair, I think were they ball sponsors or match sponsors, were they?
They were match sponsors, so they selected man of the match as well.
Did they really? So I'm surprised. They've done well to pick a woman player, which was quite good. But the gentleman behind me, I didn't actually get a chance to see who it was. I was just too busy laughing at him. But he kept on talking about substitutes and whether the substitutes would come back on. He made a comment about when there was extra time at the end of the first half about whether we go into seconds or is it just minutes we go into. He couldn't quite work it out. Obviously, American football has seconds, don't they? And the clock stops, etc., stuff like that. And then he was very impressed because he said he knew the offside rule, which again shocked me. And then he made a comment of there was a free kick for Swindon which went wide. He went, "Oh look, there goes that corner. They've knocked it too long." And I was like, "Bless, he's trying very, very hard."
But I'm sure they all enjoyed their day in the director's box at Kings Meadow, as we did. And again, thank you very much to Ryan O'Sullivan of Rygas for those. FA Cup first round draw means that we will be returning to Bury in the very, very near future, but great draw for Merstham, who host Oxford. I'm imagining that'll be a TV game. I can't see why it wouldn't be. Also, rivalling TV spots probably is St Albans City, who've got Carlisle at home, but clubs that we have visited in the past, one club that's fairly close to our hearts as Wimbledon fans, and we wish Merstham all the best in that. But Stu, I'm not going to lie, Bury away, a lot of our fans are going to be disappointed at that because we're playing them so many times in such a short period of time. But I've never been to Bury, and because it was midweek this season in the league, I was gutted because it meant I couldn't go there again. But I have been saved by the FA Cup. I'm actually going to make it to Gig Lane. Yeah,
and you know what? I've not done Bury either. And I'm in two minds about. I'm probably not going to because I really can't. Yeah, as people don't know, I'm getting married and I'm not doing away games because I need to save my wedding. And I'm just sort of thinking I will be going to one away game, which will be a game against a certain northern team, which I just want to because I want to be there for our first league win. But yeah, I must admit, I think you're the only person I actually saw say they were happy with the draw. I must admit, I literally swore at the TV, literally threw down my phone and was just gobsmacked that we had drawn. It's such a... Yes, if you've not been there, of course, it's a good draw, but it's such a nothing draw. It's against a team in our league. There was such a lot more attractive games. Merstham would have been great because they would have put more cheese rolls on for us and we could go on through cheese roll stories. But there's so many good draws out there. You know, you had Spennymoor, you had the Westfields, you even had some decent, York or teams we were not going to play this season. There's so many good games out there, but we just got Bury, which is going to be 3 games in 4 weeks, and arguably it's going to be 4 games in 4 weeks because we're going to know each other so well, and it will be a draw in the FA Cup at their place, I predict.
Guarantee it will be a draw in the same way as the club you mentioned there, York. When we played them a few seasons ago, we travelled up to Bootham Crescent twice in 2 Saturdays, and naturally the FA Cup game ended in a draw and a replay. Academy update?
Yeah, so the academy's been quite good actually. Obviously, you and I were down the academy when they lost at home to Leyton Orient. To be fair, Leyton Orient, I don't know if you're aware, you're probably not actually, Nick, they're now 10 games, they played 10, won 10, and top of that league, which is probably not a surprise. They were a different gravy when we played them in the under-18s. However, they drew 1-1 at Barnet on Saturday, which by all accounts, the Barnet under-18, Barnet Academy manager has come out in their website today going, it was a battle and a war against us. I like that. It means we're fighting hard. And then we won 2-1 away on Tuesday afternoon at Peterborough. So they've stopped the rot of losing they lost quite a lot of games in there. It looks like they've got 4 points on the board. They only have 5 points this season. So, they're gradually starting to get themselves back together. They do have a certain team up north in 2 weeks' time away. So that surely will be a decent game for them.
Speaking of the academy, I think it's probably time we got the second half of our interview with Mark Robinson and Jeremy Sauer out of the way. So about another half an hour. Fascinating chat. As I've said many, many times before, we both really, really enjoyed it, and I'm sure you will too.
On WebJam at the moment, which is on the Don's Trust board, they've got away on WebJam now where your presentation, Jeremy, that you presented to the Don Trust board recently, was on there. So looking on there, and by the way, listeners, if you want to go and have a really, really good read, please go on it. It's available, presentation. I spent ages looking at this. It's really good. But what I did notice was the finances. So we talk about the EPP and stuff. So I'm looking, when Wimbledon were the season we got promoted from the conference, budget with 2010 was 115,000. If we go 2 years later, the intersection of EPP, it's gone up to 443. So how important was that to get that status?
Yeah, massively. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do it. We now have, I think, 9 or 10 full-time staff in the academy, and I need another one. I need another full-time member of staff for us to get to the next level. So, it's huge. I mean, what you're looking at there obviously doesn't include our income, so it's not telling you what the actual funding is, and that has gone up a little bit as well. So as much as we're shelling out and our budget goes up, there is a little bit more coming in every year. And I think the club's starting to it has recognised that the academy is a way of punching above our weight, and we have levelled out perhaps as a club in terms of our average attendance, our income, and how that comparatively looks at League One and League Two. So the academy becomes important then because we need to develop a £1 million player, and that's the way that we're going to go forward, and that's the business plan, I suppose. And that's where the investment of, I think the club is actually investing about £200,000 a year into the academy. Eric tells me every time I see him and we talk about this sort of stuff, well, I could give that to Neil and we could get another couple of Lyle Taylors, and he's right, and that's the pressure for us that we've got to produce players, and that's what we need. We need to have that pressure put on us, and what it's allowed us to do over these years, it's allowed us every year to be able to put another full-time member of staff on, put an under-21s in, which is crucial to bridging the gap, build our sports science team potentially a little bit. So each year we bolted on bits and pieces to improve our programme, not just to keep up with the UPP tick boxes, but also because it's how you need to develop players. I've always looked at it long term. I've never looked at it and gone, well, next year, that's it, we've reached the point. I'm always looking 2 or 3 or 4 years ahead going, well, what do we need to do in 3 or 4 years' time, and how are we going to work towards that? So, a recent conversation we've had is does the club need to go to Category 2? Does the academy need to become Category 2? And we haven't had the full debate yet, but we had an initial conversation. I'm not sure it does. I mean, that's going to cost another £500,000 a season for the club, and we're already producing players as a Cat 3 club on our current budget. So does it need to happen? It's not urgent. It gives a little bit more protection, a little bit more compensation for players when they get sold. So your Will Manions, for instance, we might get a bit more money for. But it's a massive investment for a club this size, and I'm not sure it's necessary. And I think the Cat 3 thing, it is an elite. Remember, that's the Premier League have formed this. It's elite, so they're not too keen on Cat 3s doing particularly well. They don't like that. But I think there's a place for it because those Cat 1s haven't necessarily got the pathway. And I think more and more parents are, understanding the system. They look at it and go, well, actually, maybe Cat 3 is better because there is a pathway there for my son. Yeah, and that becomes more important. So all these numbers is fine. But actually, if we've got a pathway, parents recognise it. We paint that pathway nice and loud, nice and clear, and all of a sudden everyone wants to walk down it. It's a no-brainer.
We've noticed as well, Jill, we get an awful lot more scouts coming to Cat 3 games than ever before because I think they've recognised it's realistic, the Cat 3 football. Yeah, so, I mean, you've watched today's game, you certainly wouldn't call it tippy-tappy, would you?
No,
they were a big physical side, and I'm not obviously never going to be exactly what you get the first team, but, it's competitive. People, whereas sometimes you go and watch Cat 1, Cat 2, it is very much you have it, we have it. And a lot of scouts we know have said, they watch, but you don't really learn a lot about the player because they all look decent on the ball, they all look this. So, whereas today, you have to really earn the right to play. So if someone's standing out, that they've had to compete physically and earn the right to play. So we've noticed a massive shift. I mean, today we probably had, 10 scouts down over both games?
Yeah, we're getting more every week already.
How have you found it? Because obviously the success last year of the FA Cup, and also now, if I was looking through the first team squad, and we've got 10 players in that first team, we've got squad numbers who have come through the academy. Okay. Is that making it easier now for you to sell that? Because let's be fair, the parents hold quite a big influence.
Yeah.
Is that making it easier now for you to attract the people to come in?
I mean, definitely, obviously, because the gaffers, created this pathway, which is the most important thing. It's not just for the players; it's everyone. It's for all the staff as well. Because sometimes I look at clubs and I just think, God, it must be a thankless task. You're doing well, and there's no pathway. So it's great we've got that, and I think, we're hoping now it will have that kick-on effect that people will see it, and with all the stuff we're doing as well, on top of there being a pathway that. The biggest problem we've always had, we've been very proud of our coaching programme, and sometimes we think we punch above our weight in terms of the development we get out of a player. So, Toyosi, for example, never been near an academy, even though we had him for a year. I feel the amount of development we gave him was fantastic, and that happens right the way through from under 10s. So what we're hoping now is that, maybe we will start to attract some of the better under 9s and the better under 10s, and we certainly had that with Brentford closing, didn't we? Yeah. So obviously Brentford closing, we know, because very aggressive in their recruitment, so we knew there was some talent, and them boys probably had choices, and some of them come to us. So I think the pathway and everything that's definitely helped.
Well, we've signed 8 from them now, which is not bad considering they could have gone to. They were a very strong academy. They had the choice of most academies around the whole of London, really.
Yeah.
So, we were quite proud of that one, and I think that illustrates, I suppose, the reputation that we've got now, and that's what we want, that's what we need.
I'll give you an example of that, because Joe probably won't want to speak about himself, but he did a whole package. So as soon as that happened, he did a presentation, he did a whole thing, he invited the Brentford parents in, he found a way of getting a message out to them, which I won't talk about, because it's all done in the right way, but he found a way of getting a message.
Social media.
Yeah. And basically, he did a whole, so they come down with, and we probably had 40 that 40 night come down, and they come down and he just did a presentation of the club. So straight away they come in. So the stuff you've read, and we had the Wimbledon history. So straight away, bang, we're trying to indoctrinate them in what we do, and so it's not a fluke. Things don't just happen in life because of that. That planted some seeds, and you're never going to attract everyone because there's always someone's going to follow the badge because that's the way they are. But without him doing that, we wouldn't have got those 8 signed, definitely.
You talk about Brentford Academy there. Were you surprised that their academy, they dropped it? Because a lot of big clubs are dropping their academies now, aren't they? Were you surprised they did that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure lots are. EPP's been in place for 4 years now, so I think everyone's reviewing it and looking at what's best for them. And I think they've obviously gone down sort of a Moneyball route of how they want to try and produce talent. They've got a Scandinavian guy who's very involved down there, I think, has made that decision for them. Really surprised, though, at the time, because... we found out about it on social media before we from the normal network of people that we know and parents and stuff like that. But also they invested so much down there, and they had a thriving academy, and I mean that. They had some serious talent down there throughout all their age groups. So to shut it down is well, they haven't shut it down, to be fair. It's under 17s, under 21s, but they've lost all those years of development they put into those younger players. They've thrown it away, and it's quite hard to see, really, because they had some real potential there. So I'm sure they've done their own sums and done their own business plan on it. I'm sure it's what's right for their club at the time, but it was a shock, yeah, definitely.
Talk about the pathway of a lot of our players, and Stu was saying the amount of players have actually got through to the first team level. Yeah. In real terms, what does that pathway look like then? So if do you identify players that you think, right, they're ready for the first team, they've got a chance, and then do you communicate that to the first team squad as and when you feel necessary, or is it done every few months or something? Do you have a sit down and chat with Neil Ardley?
Well, yeah, I mean the formal way of doing it, we have a meeting group called the Technical Board, and so that's Eric at the top of it with David Charles as well. Mark's on it, I'm on it, Neil's on it, the first team manager, and Alan's on it, the 21s manager. So we meet at least quarterly. So we've got a few meetings in there every year, and we go through a formal process of talking about how the boys are doing and where they're at. And so we actually had one last week, and it updates the group, and we decide upon professional contracts from there. We aren't up. Mark's based down here at the moment and has been for a few years now, so he's obviously rubbing shoulders with the first team manager on a regular basis and talking about progression of players. We're going to be moving down here actually quite soon from the stadium. The rest of the academy staff are there at the moment. Okay. We'll be down here, which is actually going to make it a little bit more easier, to have those sort of more informal conversations about how boys are doing. What the gaffer would tell you, which is true, is that the 21s will train a lot of the time with the first team. So anytime there's an under 18 or a 21 player in that squad, they'll go and train a couple of times at least with the first team, which means that he gets an opinion on them. Might not be the game, might not be the actual match situation, but he's seeing them on a day-to-day basis, so he formulates his own ideas of how it goes and what that looks like as well. So that's, I suppose, the way that it's done. It's not really particularly done on budget as such. If we've got a talented group, then we need to take more through. If there's less that year, then there's less that year, and we might have to look from outside a little bit. Seth just signed for the under-21s. He's a left-back, come out of Brentford. That's a position we couldn't give from the academy, so we had to look from outside, and he's settled into the group quite well. So normally, my ratio is if we can take at least 75% through to under-21s and maybe 25% from elsewhere, that's probably on average what you might look to try and do and achieve, and we'd be happy with that. And going forward, we want to try and grow the 21s, and that's not going to be an easy challenge, but at the moment it's very small. We don't want to be putting bums on the seats just for the sake of doing it, but if we can get to a point where we've got 5 first year, for instance, pros, 5 second year pros, then that's 10, and you might send a couple out on loan during their 2 years with us. You might have a couple coming up from the under-18s who need to stay in the 21s. You might have a couple of boys from the first team who need that sort of stuff. So I think we're moving towards that. But like I said earlier around the finances, it's small steps every season building towards that longer-term vision. And you can't just throw money at it and have it how you want it. So we're building towards it.
So what's your relationship with sort of like the gaffer Neil Ardley and Alan Reeves? Because Neil comes from 5 years at Cardiff, so obviously he's seen that side of it. Is he very supportive? Because obviously Alan Reeves now takes the 21s. I remember looking at you a little while ago where he said he won't go and look for someone else out if he's got someone coming through his academy. Yeah. So is it all very supportive of each other, the way you work together?
Yeah, I mean, Reeves always comes to me first and says, what you got, if he's looking for a position, he say, what have you got? So unfortunately, like George Marchant would have gone in at right back this year, but he's been injured. He's got a long-term injury, but he would never ever go and look outside. He'd always try our boys first. So, as I said, I'm here on a daily basis. So, we've changed offices now, but I've always been in the office with the first team, with the gaffer and stuff. So, and they're very open with me. Unless they're having a meeting with a player, I sit in. If they're having meetings, I listen to all their meetings. They ask me every morning how things went, and I speak to Coxie a lot about that. So they know, and because it's such a tight-knit sort of environment down here, they know the boys anyway, and they get to know the boys. So it's just really open, and if I've got a problem, I'll come in and say, I've got a little bit of an issue with this player and stuff. So it's just a really open environment, really.
I think if the gaffer's point of view, he needs to. He keeps an eye on what we're doing, and he'll get involved if he feels he needs to, and come down and watch bits and pieces of the games. FA Youth Cup is a good example of that. But in general, if myself, Robbo and Reevesy go to the gaffer and say, we want to give this kid a contract, it'll happen because he'll back what three of us do. He's known Roosie for years. He's known us now for 4 years. I think he's come up to his 4th anniversary this week, isn't he?
Yes.
And so I think we built that relationship, and it's taken him a couple of years to get there, and because he's obviously come from Cardiff and he's had his own opinions on how things are done. But I think we're in a good place actually. We've got a good relationship with him, and when he first joined the club, he came and knocked on our door and said, "Well, what can I do for you?" Because he understood what it was like to have a first team manager who wasn't cooperative about youth players, naming no names, but he came and knocked on our door and said, "What can I do for you guys?" And that was something new to us, wasn't it, at the time? Yeah. And so, And
to be fair, in those early days, like we had Will Nightingale, so Will had played not a lot of football, unfortunately. So I don't think the gaffer had even seen him play. And he hadn't played that many games for me that I'd liked over the 2 seasons as a scholar. And to be fair, I went in and I just said, "Gaffer, we've got this lad. I know you haven't seen him. We can't let him go. I promise you, if he can get fit, you will absolutely love him." And to be fair, I mean, he hadn't been here that long, and he just went, "Okay." He said, "If you want to hang you out on someone, that's fine," and he did. And thankfully, so fingers crossed, he stays injury free, which I'm positive he will now. So and that was in the very early days as well.
Yes, he come through 2013. Was looking here, same with Tom Beer.
Yeah,
that's all. You touched on it earlier. I was interested because when we build talent from the academy.
Yeah.
How frustrating, not frustrating, but was it difficult early on when we kept getting promoted? I know the first thing going from conference, so you're preparing players for certain levels.
I think.
How was that? Was that frustrating or difficult to?
Yeah, it was frustrating. I think what it is we talk about mentality, and I think what the problem was. So we had players who kept coming close, and I looked at that, and so we had Brendan who was in and around the first team, and then obviously. If anyone said to me who was your biggest disappointment as a player, I'd say Jim. Because Jim Fenlon for me was good enough, and the gaffer, and that would be the first to admit he was good enough. So, but the difference is like the environment we create now and the mentality we create is, the biggest insult for me is if a player falls short because of mentality. And I openly say it about Tom as well. I think if Tom had come through our system now and had 3-4 years in our system now, I'm confident he would probably have started in the first team more because, I'm open with Tom, he knows in the gaffer. The thing that lets him down is just that mentality. We all know he's got ability, and you've seen that the last couple of games. And Tom knows that. So what the biggest thing I hate is if the gaffer turns around at me and goes, if we've had a boy in here for 4 or 5 years, or if he says, "Look, we don't think he's good enough," that's fine. He's not good enough. But to have someone say he's mentally not right, he doesn't get Wimbledon, he doesn't want to work hard enough, that hurts because that's the one thing we don't want. And I think that's what we had, to be honest, in the past. And that's just a learning thing because it's getting harder. And so with Jim, Jim was a talent, but whatever went awry there or went wrong was just due to progression, and hopefully that won't happen now. If we get the talent, the players will also have the mentality.
Yeah, I mean, mentality of the players, and you touched on earlier, developing players in Wimbledon, not just as players but as people as well. Yeah. Will Nightingale, we talked about being a great ambassador of that. Yeah. Ties in nicely. Stu was actually looking through and looking at the code of conduct that you've put in place.
I love the code of conduct.
Which is, I mean, that all feeds into that, doesn't it? With sort of some of the rules and regulations you have in place for that. What was your thinking behind some of those?
Everyone tells you that London's the best catchment area in the world to get players from, and it's true. It's got 8.6 million, I think. But actually, I worked out the other day. Right, this is I think it's 8.6 million people. I can't remember the exact percentage, but basically, there's 1.4 of those are of the right age for us to recruit in the academy. 5 to whatever it is, 21. So half of those obviously are boys. So there's 700,000 kids in our catchment, not including Surrey and the surrounding areas, that we can recruit. So great, but equally everyone wants a bit of it. So we've done our job over the last 10 years, knowing that Fulham literally are there. I've been trying to grow that hedge for a while, but they still look over it. Chelsea, Reading, Palace, and now we've got Norwich's, you've got Brighton's, you've got Southampton's, you've got Man City, we had Stoke today. So you've got these big clubs who all want a bit of London. So the reason that we've gone down the road that you're talking about there, the code of conduct, is because we know we have to create an environment that people want to be a part of and people feel are positive, challenging. Parents look at it and go, well, if he doesn't make it, he's going to be a better person for it, so I'm going to send my son there. And that's how we've always done things. So it's the same for the staff. We have to have staff who embody that as well. Yeah. So that code of conduct's crucial to us creating our environment, and it's what stands us out from the people next door because we haven't got the money to buy the same facilities, the same amount of staff as the same fancy footballs, £100. We haven't got all of those sort of things. We have got a good environment and they don't cost anything. So that's the reason why we've been always quite strong with that.
I was reading through it, and again, like I say, this
Come
is
on,
one.
Joe, you're dying to bring one up.
No, I was saying again, the players' code of conduct. Me and Nick, we have a laugh because the first two are really great. So play by the law of the games and never argue with the referee or their assistant's decision. Now, Nick and I always laugh because one of the things that we always found as a first team, so we watch a lot of first team, when you get players surrounding referees and arguing and stuff, and we know through hearing that we deliberately don't want that. As a club, the ethos and that, we don't want to do that. And it just really is great. I saw that the first two things that was in there, even going along to the things of I will always wear I will wear my actually kit inside and outside the academy. It's all that sort of being a part of the club. But is that quite a big thing for you? Because one thing I noticed that your teams don't do, and I've been down here quite a few times, you very rarely see them argue with a referee. Even to yourself, I sat here today and you were not having a go at the Lions person or assistant referee, but done in a respectful way. Yeah. Now, if you go somewhere else, places, it's not done in that respectful way. Is that something you really build in?
Yeah, I mean, I work on the fact that if you rely on things that are out of your control, you're in trouble. So, I know you could go, but it's professional to keep having a go at the ref and that. And I will say to them, try and get the ref on your side by, but I just think in football, so many times everyone rely. I hate it. We come in and go, oh, that was unlucky, or this was that. Everything on a football field happens for a reason. You know what I mean? It's very rare that something's unlucky. I don't think anything's unlucky. Maybe a 30-yard shot hits the underside of the bar. I'd deem unlucky. Everything happens for a reason. So the more reliant you are on outside influences and getting at the ref, well, the ref should have done that. The ref should have, but maybe he should have. But maybe 2 minutes earlier you shouldn't have given the ball away and your angle weren't good enough. And so I just massive on just worry about things that are in our control. And because at the end of the day with football, it's a game of variables, and that's the reason we love it. It's the reason it's the greatest sport in the world, because anything can happen, even when you're dominant. So I say all you can possibly do in a football match is load the odds in your favour as much as you possibly can. And by doing that, you just need to do the right things and be in control of what you do. So for me, worrying about refs and arguing with refs, it's just a pointless waste of breath, and I just think everyone spends too much time on it, really. And Gel feels the same. So I just like to feel that we're in. What my dream is that we've got teams that feel they're completely in control of their own destiny when they go on the pitch. So that's the reason we do it.
So for our final bit, I noticed in the academy vision, what do you see as a future? So I know in the visions, it's basically produce players for first team. And one thing I loved on it was in 2020 for 25% of all first team appearances. Is that what you're striving to? How close do you think you are for that? So that's 3 years away?
Yeah, again, it's quite tricky with that sort of stuff because we put it in our APP every year, but it's obviously not directly in our control of which boys go into the first team. This year, for instance, we're on 6.5%, which is not quite where I want it. We're aiming for 10% this season of first team. Academy appearances contributing to the first team. Yeah. So we're not quite where we want to get to, but I think, with Tom and Will's potentially starting to claim a stake that will happen. Last year we fell a little bit below it as well, and that's probably because of Will's injury quite early on in the season. I think he could have established himself and maybe the promotion run as well. But what we're doing is we're measuring it and we're talking about it with our technical boards, and that's not an academy document, that's a club document. That's the important thing for me. So I can knock on Eric's door and we can talk about these things, and we can talk about it with the first team manager as well, and we've got those targets in place as a club, and it isn't just the academy saying, well, we want to do this, we want to do that. So that's the big thing, and I don't think a lot of academies have that privilege. I think academies put those things on paper because it's right for the UPPP, but I'm not sure it's a club-wide philosophy. I don't think it's a culture within the club. So really what I would like, particularly, I'm sure Robert can add to it, I want that culture to develop. I want that culture to be recognised nationally, and I want people to go, they are doing something special down there, and if I send my kid down there, he will get an opportunity to become a professional footballer. And I want, every time a player steps on the pitch, for the fans to take real pride that he's a homegrown player. I think that is a culture. I think all of that is a mindset, and I think, I don't know how long Neil will be here for, and he's been here for a while now, and everything's going really well. But when a new manager does come in, that needs to carry on. That needs to be a club-led thing. It can't be you appoint a new manager, whenever that is, in a year or 10 years' time, and he decides that, no, 4-4-2, we're only going to buy players over here. You can't have that, otherwise you've wasted £200,000 every year of academy investment. So I want a club culture, and we're certainly making good steps towards that every year, and we're not far from it. And I'd like to say, but it'd be a bit of a risk to say that I feels like over the last few months we've reached a bit of a tipping point with where we've done. We've worked really hard over the last years. A lot of it's gone unnoticed, but now we're getting to a point where productivity, players going into the first team, is starting to happen, and I think it's going to keep on rolling on from there. So that's kind of how I'd like to see it.
Yeah. Obviously, you guys. Sorry, Mark. You go to home games, don't you? So you see.
Yeah.
Is that a proud moment for you when you see your products?
Oh, massively. Yeah. I mean, just going back to what you said, Joe. I mean, I agree with all that 100% as well. And on top of that, I know Joe and I always talk about we kind of want to break myths a little bit in football, because I think I call them like footballisms. People just say things and they regurgitate it over a period of time. They don't really know what they're saying. So people that go to you, if you get a couple in, you're doing well, and we're like, why are we doing well? We don't, and I had a chat with Ivor, and he always after the Chelsea game, he said to me, he went, don't be downbeat, come on, it was good, everyone's happy. And I'm like, but Ivor, we lost. And he's going, I don't care, look, you're getting the bar's full, you've got to go and be up. But for me, I won't be happy until we go out and perform against whoever is the best in Europe at the time. And because I just think if you set your stall low and go, but they've got this, they've got that. As Jill said already, we're never going to have the best training ground. We're never going to have this. We're never going to have that. But I don't want that to be excuses. I won't be happy till we compete with whoever we compete with, and we're on a level playing field. And I think you can achieve it. I think we can achieve it. And sometimes, if you ever come down this Sunday morning, it'd be great if you come down. You'll start to see it. We've got age groups now. We're getting very dominant at Cat 3. In terms of age group, and you'll see us, we invite other teams down, don't we? Southampton come down, and you'll see our 12s or 11s, and you'll see it. We're getting there, and everyone's just got to keep pushing for that and making that happen. So sorry, you were saying, do I get?
Do you get? Because obviously Alfie made his debut against Plymouth,
massively, and just as importantly, I don't know if you felt it. I know there was only 900 people there, but there was all of a sudden everything lifted, because you can feel it. And I remember when Ben made his debut and Will made his, but you can feel it come off the fans. So even there was 900 people, all of a sudden there felt like there was 2,000 people in the ground, because it was like, come on, Alfie. You could just hear little people, go on, Alf, because they want to see him do well. Because the words he said after the FA Youth Cup, they're not coming from. It's not me going, Alf, say something positive about the club. I don't. It's in them. They genuinely want to do well for this football club. So So I do get massively. I mean, Gel's murder because he should have done better there on game. So we have this little thing where, I don't mean this disrespect, but if a first team player makes a mistake, I go, see, look, he did the same thing. But he's like, no, I know. But every little thing, he looks at it and goes, could have done it better there. So we kick every ball.
We had a fun one at the end of last season, because you were on tour with one of the Anglo agents, weren't you? When TOC made his debut.
That's right.
And I was texting him, and I've looked back at the string of text messages, and I'm not typing right, so I'm so excited, and it's like, misspell this, misspell that. TOC, penalty, he's taken it! And so,
I'm thinking they're winding me up. So,
we get excited.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, from my experience, especially through other mates who don't go to first team games, the moment someone's come through the academy, they get that benefit of the doubt. Because they're one of your own, you sort of said before. When it's one of your own coming through, you give them that. Where if you get someone from another academy, they much up. It is that sort of mentality. I think Wimbledon fans have that mentality.
Definitely.
They want to see them kids come through. And I must admit, I saw Tom Beer from 18s and saw him 21s, and when he came through, I was like, this kid's got something. He's starting to produce that now, a bit more than what he was.
No, I mean, Tom at under 18 level, him and Fanny Bradley Dack, who was they were the two players. There's no doubt about it. I used to play Gillingham, and Darren Hare would go, I like that, I like him, and I'd go, he's good. And you're just dying for Tom to sort of impose himself and get those run. It was so nice to see him the other night. First time see him run at people and beat people, because I know it's a different level under 18. I'm not naive, but he used to do that. He could glide past people, and I always considered him like an 8, 10, 12 goal a season midfield man. So it was so nice to see him getting at people and doing it.
And you also get the naivety of youth as well. I think that happens. They go in there and they're not bogged down with. They just go and do what they do naturally, And so I think that's always quite exciting as well when someone comes on and they're just doing it off the cuff. They aren't tainted with all this sort of years and years of professional habits, I suppose you call them, or whatever, or worried about what other people think. They just go and do it, and I think that's always quite a good thing to see as well.
So I suppose we've got a couple come through at the moment. So for those who don't really know, Paul Cambaye today, Toby Civic, and Tosi.
Yeah.
What do you expect? Not to big them up, but what do you see for their futures?
Paul and Toby, very different players. Paul, as you saw when he gets it right, very aggressive, very commanding, decent on the ball. Toby, very good on the ball, really quick, not the Paul slow. Paul's got good pace as well, but Toby is not very, very quick. I think he's sort of still a little bit undecided with Toby whether he's going to be a right back or a centre back. I know it sounds, when someone's 6'3", 6'4", you automatically go, I've got to be a centre back. But I think, he's certainly good enough on the ball to also be able to fill in at right back. So, I've got to be honest, I'm not one Stu to.
No.
I don't make big predictions. I just think they've got. I'd say they've got plenty of potential, and Toyosi, they've got loads and loads of potential. But at the end of the day, it'll be down to them, because I can't predict how hard they're going to work, how much they want it. You look at them and you feel like they want it. Particularly Paul. I mean, I think T's got to get the mentality right. He'd agree with that. Sometimes he takes things a bit too personally, and Toby's got to strive to be more aggressive. But they've got huge potential. Same with Alf. I think Alf's got huge potential.
The first team are loving Alf.
They're loving Alf.
I think how he spoke about the team as well. I think they would get it, don't they? He's a very passionate guy, isn't he?
Yeah. Now they all are. Yeah. I mean, T's a funny one, isn't it? Because we went to the Charlton game in the week for the 21s, and we were terrible first half. We were 3-0 down. We actually pulled one back just before half time, which helped us obviously. But T did nothing all game. I wouldn't mind telling them that. In fact, I did tell him that at half time. But then second half, he has 2 moments and he wins you 2 penalties, and all of a sudden you're back in the game. Yeah. And that's against a good team as well, Charlton. Yeah, very good team. So T's a bit of an enigma like that. He's in and out, and he needs to get a bit more consistency. But he can hurt people for sure.
And that's the 23s. That's the development. That's the cup thing, isn't it? We've just gone through.
Yeah, we still call it 21s because I think the 23s. I think that's all a bit. The Premier League are just saying, "Well, now they need to be older before they go into the first team." I don't buy into it. But yeah, it's the 23s. Yeah.
Although they to be honest, most teams we play tend to have more senior players. We're always very young when we play in these games. I mean, so that Charlton game, we had Joe in goal was 16, Tom 16, and then Toby 17. Yeah. And then
Jamie and Seth were both 19.
So we were very young. So one question I've got to ask is: Paul Cambaye going to stop growing at all? Because for a 17-year-old, I don't.
His shoulders just
I can't believe that.
Yeah,
we check his birth certificate.
Because people have said that, but when you talk to Paul, you see his age. Not that he's immature; he's not like that. But when you sort of get back, but no, to be fair though, he doesn't stop working. A lot of that is he was quite a big lad, but he knows the demands of what you need to be a pro footballer. So he works very hard on his physical sort of presence.
But believe it or not, he's only been a centre back for as long as he's been at this club. Yeah. He was a striker. Yeah. He got released from Brentford a few years ago now, but he was a striker there. Yeah. So never pigeonhole someone, do you?
No, definitely not. Guys, thank you very much for your time today. It's been fantastic. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm sure Stu and I, we could probably sit here for another hour. We've got so many things we could talk about, I'm sure. It's been a fascinating chat.
For another hour.
It has been fascinating. It's been great listening to you. So I'm almost a little bit sorry for what I'm about to do, but it has become a tradition on our show to ask you a few random questions to finish off our interviews with. A few either-or questions, and when I say random, I mean random. I've got 3 each for you here. So if I start with you, Mark, actually.
Okay.
If I could ask you, if for the rest of your life you had to live with either a sore throat or an itchy mouth, the top of your mouth there, roof of your mouth, which one would you choose? This was the hardest one I had to ask. Itchy. So you know the roof of your mouth, yeah.
Roof of the mouth.
Yeah, or a sore throat.
I'd probably have to, because I spend most of my life with a sore throat, probably. Talking and chatting, so I'd probably get used. So I'll probably have to go sore throat. Have to go sore throat.
Cool. Would you rather go on holiday to Barbados with Sam Allardyce or to Watford with Angelina Jolie?
Watford all day long.
Definitely. Dick doesn't like Watford,
so my choice would be Barbados with Sam Allardyce.
I thought you just meant not talking Watford Football Club, just Watford
in general, but the whole place. I'm not a big fan
to upset you, mate. It's still good Watford.
I got more joy out
of anything worse than going there.
Sam Allardyce. No, to be fair, your FA Cup run last year, and even better than Wembley for me personally, was beating Watford last year. So there you go. Thank you very much for that one last year. Yeah,
good.
And finally, would you rather live with a tiger-sized rabbit or a rabbit-sized tiger?
Rabbit. Cool, blimey, these are random.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that'd be quite cute, a rabbit-sized tiger.
I'd
have a rabbit-sized tiger.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Jeremy, would you rather live without elbows or knees?
Blimey. I was a centre back, so I couldn't live without my elbows.
No, knees, because just straight line jumping.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. If you could only watch one TV show for the rest of your life, would you choose Sex and the City or Made in Chelsea?
I've got in a bit. You don't realise how painful that question is. You couldn't have picked two words.
Stu couldn't live without one or the other, whereas I could quite happily live without both.
That Made for Chelsea, that is dumbing down humanity. I can do without that all day long. Sex and the City all day long.
Okay, cool. And then finally, would you rather live with a womble-sized eagle or an eagle-sized womble?
Is that because I'm a Crystal Palace fan?
It is indeed because you're a Crystal Palace fan, yeah.
So a womble-sized eagle or an eagle-sized womble? A womble-sized eagle.
Womble-sized eagle. Yeah. We mean womble as in the character's not Hayden the womble. I'm clarifying for the listeners that we don't want sort of Dean Parsons hanging around. Cool, brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. That was fantastic. And good luck for the rest of the season with the different teams and, of course, over the next however many years producing players for the first team. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last week, Dominic Poleon ended up in Yorkshire in Bradford City. Stu, your first clue this week to guess where he's gone this time round is that he has stayed in Yorkshire. Do you want to have a random guess to see if you can get it on the first go?
Let's think of Huddersfield.
It's not Huddersfield. Let's get another one. Dom has arrived at the ground on the train, not too far from the station. He's gone straight to the away end. It is a big away end. A bit of research tells him that 6,000 fans can be accommodated in that away end, but they normally only open it for about 2,000.
I would say my gut feeling is Sheffield Wednesday.
It's good, but it's not right. So final clue, you might get this one. The away stand is a fairly new stand. It's a big stand. It's a fairly new stand. The most significant feature of the away end, the new away end, is that it has a roof, which Dom doesn't think it had previously. We're in Yorkshire, big away end, with a roof, didn't always have a roof. Probably visited there once where there wasn't a roof, and as Wimbledon fans, we were made to pay for that.
The only thing I can think of is a trip to Barnsley, which didn't have a roof. I don't think it still does.
Go for Barnsley. Say Barnsley again. Say it again.
Barnsley.
Yay! It is indeed Barnsley.
Has that got a roof? Has that got a roof now?
Yeah. I think they knocked down the old stand that was there and replaced it fully.
Because Barnsley's a nice ground. The best thing I love about Barnsley, to be fair, I wasn't far away from Sheffield Wednesday, because you've got to go to Sheffield to get the lovely it might be different now, but last time I went, you go to Sheffield and then you get on this 2-carriage train to Barnsley, which looks like it was still running in the 1800s, and it is just the most shocking train journey. Let's be fair, Barnsley is more an old coal mine in town, isn't it? No, but memorable.
Say that word again. Memorable. You remember them? They are, like Wallingford away and the steam train. Yes, how can we forget that day out? What a great day out that was for getting the result.
Oh, the start of it was all right.
Yeah, and the big fight.
And the half-time entertainment.
Yeah, and then the second half played to the sound of police helicopters. Other than that, it was beautiful. Oh yeah, and the rain as well, yeah. It was no Merstham, was it?
No. No, it was no Merstham. It was no cheese rolls. And I do love. Do you know what? I was so gutted we didn't get Merstham in that FA Cup game, because we could have spoke to our good friend Nick Palmer about how much he paid for his cheese rolls when they were going for nothing at the end of the game.
They're selling them for £2 each. Oh no, they're selling them for £1 each. 2 for £1, 4 for £1. Oh, just have them. Just take them.
I think he must have spent a good £5 on rolls, and we got the same rolls. I don't know how many they made. Did they ever actually say how many rolls they made? They must have made hundreds and hundreds.
I think they actually built a cheese roll wall that was actually used as part of the stand. It was just that big. It's ridiculous.
It's a lovely club. It's a lovely club, Merstham. I go there regularly to watch the under-21s there, who they kind of look after. They look after us all very well, actually. You know, they invite us into the clubhouse. The chairman there is always there. The grounds are really nice, and it's going to be such a good payday for them. And like I say, it'll probably sell out. If you're in a local area, you want to get along, you'll get a front row view. It's a really nice ground, and I'm glad they got that. They deserve the payday they're going to get. But a tough game they got. They could have got some better games in terms of winnable games. That's a tough game for them.
It is indeed. But you mentioned our under-21s there. Any update from them?
Yeah, so 21's still not doing too much, because this time of the season it's difficult to arrange games, because under 23 Cup, of course, you've got the Development League. You've also got who can forget, the Checker Trade Trophy in its disguise of under 21 football. And it's just that time of season. So there's no game this week. The next home game is against Peterborough on Tuesday the 25th. That will be a training ground for those of you who get along there. That's going to be a 2 p.m. kickoff in the Central League Cup, Southern Group A. And then we are in that group. We are in with Colchester, Southend and Barnet. And our next game, as we were just discussing at Merstham, is against Swindon in the Central League, which is on Monday the 31st with a 7 p.m. kickoff.
Any update from the ladies this week?
The lovely ladies. So they went away to Gillingham, who were unbeaten, are still unbeaten because we drew one each. Went 1-0 down, but got an equalised just for half time. So they're doing well. They'd won in a cup the week before, so they're doing really well with that. Their next home game, or next fixture, is a home game against Cambridge United, who are second in the league, a point behind the Wimbledon ladies. But we played an extra point. We played extra games, so that's a tough game for them. They're doing very well. And as we were fortunate enough to speak to Kelly Jade Whelan on Saturday, she got a hat-trick in that game in the FA Cup, which she was very quick to say it was nothing, don't worry about it. But she's back on form, and she took good care of us, didn't she, in the presence now on John Saturday. And it was really nice to see that the club are using one of their own to help people get to their seat and that sort of thing. And she was very good at making people welcome in the President's Lounge on Saturday.
Peterborough away on Saturday. It is 6th versus 9th. Bit of revenge for us, possibly, after they knocked us out of the League Cup earlier in the season. What are you expecting from the trip to London Road, or whatever the stadium is now called, with some ridiculous sponsorship deal?
Yeah, so it was my first trip there. When I did go to that game before I realised I couldn't go to any more away games. I did do that one, which was I'm a bit worried actually for Saturday, because I think Peterborough are a very good team. They got some very good players who are just not clicking at the moment, and I hope they continue not to. Although it does worry me that they won 3-0 against Northampton on Tuesday night. So tough game for us. We lost there. We shouldn't really have lost. We had some good chances at 1-1 and then lost a set piece, which was a theme back then, wasn't it? But it's a tough game. It's a tough game, and I would settle all day long now for a draw if you gave it to me. But we are level on points with them. They're slightly above us on goal difference. They do score a lot of goals, but it's a tough game, Nick, isn't it?
Updates from Peterborough will be provided on all the usual outlets at 9YRS Podcast on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram as well, so be sure to check those out. Otherwise, Stu, I believe that is it for this week.
Yeah, that's us done. Hope everyone enjoyed the finish to Mark Robinson and Jeremy Sauer. Great entertainment, and we will make sure we catch up with them again sometime soon.
We will indeed. It is half-term week coming up. It is a glorious time to be alive. What a wonderful week it's going to be. join us during half term for next week's show. Do not forget to do that, and please pass on the message about our wonderful podcast to any Wimbledon fans you know that aren't currently listening. Our listening figures, Stu, are up and up and up and up, so we just want to keep the momentum going. Thank you very much for joining me this week, Stu.
Thank you.
And please do join us next week. Our guest is going to be Nick Knowles. Oh no, hold on, no, he's gone back to his old podcast. Never mind. Okay, we'll see you next week anyway.